subscribe.
When I was on my crusade to play all the classics, I couldn't get my hands on GoldenEye, so this was the next best thing. In the end, it didn't really matter because The World Is Not Enough had the same issue I had with Tomb Raider. Its controls are outdated. Limited to the N64, there is no real way to get dual analog gameplay, which I would argue is the most intuitive way to play FPS on a console. Regardless, what worked back then definitely doesn't work now. This is why controls are one of the most vital parts of making a game. If it doesn't feel good to play, I'm not gonna play it. It doesn't matter how good of a game it could be. Now I will give 007 the multiplayer, if only because both of us had to use the controls so it became just dumb fun. Although towards the end of our sessions playing multiplayer, the prevailing strategy was to run away before anyone could set up a clear shot, thus stalling out the match. I suppose it was worth buying if only to find out how bad this control scheme really was. For everyone else, don't bother.
2 out of 10!
Despite its extreme looks and legacy name, Excitebike 64 didn't do much besides bore me. Dirt bikes are cool and all, but it didn't really do anything to stand out from the crowd from what I remember. Just a run-of-the-mill bike racing game. I was hoping there'd be an interesting twist given its connection to the original Excitebike, which while not the craziest NES game by any means, was a neat take on racing games at the time. This one, however, doesn't live up to that, and I was quite disappointed by it. It looks pretty, controls fine, and plays well, but if I tried to boot this one up again, I could probably get a single race in before I get bored.
5 out of 10!
Now we're getting back on track. Star Fox 64 has a lot going for it and is some proof to me that this era of gaming wasn't all a mess, and that Star Fox can still have potential. The presentation is on point, including the music taking after space symphonies like Star Wars. The iconic characters are fun to listen to during stages and intros as they banter with each other. The graphics actually embrace the angular style fitting of the N64, rather than shying away from it, which many games of this era tried to do. This then makes everything easy to read on screen, which is vital to the gameplay, which is also incredibly fun. Most of the game being on rails simplifies movement and allows focus on what's happening in front of you. All range sections can get a little hard to control, and it can be even harder to figure out what's going on around you. These are my least favorite sections of the game, but they give you enough movement options and a lock-on to help out. The best part, however, is the replayability. Star Fox 64 is a pretty short game, but offers a lot of value beyond that as there's a plethora of different routes to take in each run. It's fun to explore the different scenarios and the stages that lead to different routes. It never feels like I'm playing exactly the same game, unless I want to, of course. It's not perfect, however. Some levels aren't very fun to play. People like to bring up the tank and submarine ones as examples, and while you can avoid one if you know what to do, I still feel the same way. This game is at its best when it's not messing around with other gameplay styles and just letting us fly. Either way, everyone should give this game a try.
9 out of 10!
I've got a big soft spot for this game. So many memories of playing this with my dad, landing 900s in the warehouse or competing for high scores in the skate park in Chicago, rocking out to the soundtrack every single time. It's very hard for me to divorce those experiences from this game, but I'll try my best. Let's start by saying the mainline Tony Hawk games are pretty iterative. This being the first one, there's not a lot going on in comparison. Levels can be overly simple or confusing, as it feels like the designers are still trying to figure out what works. The gameplay is the most simple version of itself, and it feels just as easy to quit after 30 minutes than to stay up until 3 AM, because what you see is what you get, and if the game doesn't hook you in right away, there isn't much else to satisfy you. This also isn't even the best version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1. The N64 version is missing a decent amount of content due to hardware limitations, which is a bummer, but I still think the core of Pro Skater is here. I even enjoy other games in this series more, but I'll still be happy to go back because at the end of the day, I'm still doing tricks out of half pipes, grinding rails, and listening to Superman on repeat.
7 out of 10!
Merry Christmas.